Good morning, and thank you for joining us as we begin our live team coverage of President Barack Obama's visit to Western New York. I'm Melissa Holmes, and we've got a huge team of two on your side, reporters and photographers and analysts ready to bring you extensive coverage all morning long. The president is in town to unveil his plans to make higher education more affordable. And we got a preview this morning of what the president is going to propose today. First, his plan calls for the government to start rating colleges before the 2015 school year on several measures, including tuition, graduation rates, debt and earnings of graduates, and the percentage of lower income students who attend. Now, if Congress approves it, colleges would be compared by those ratings, which would then partly determine federal aid to students at those colleges. The Obama administration would like to tie federal aid to those ratings starting in 2018 so that students at highly rated colleges might get larger federal grants and more affordable loans. The president also wants $1 billion for a Race to the Top program like the one that he championed for grade schools. And he wants states to fund their public schools based on performance rather than just enrollment or seat time. 3 states, Ohio, Tennessee, and Indiana, have made moves in this direction, but it's not clear what level support that this would have in a Congress that's bitterly divided over just about everything these days. And other proposals in the draft includes stretching out Pell Grant money over the semester instead of giving it in a lump sum to make sure that those getting the aid keep working toward a degree. And the program has some issues right now, though, with students who keep getting aid without really making any progress. And he also wants to expand the pay-as-you-earn program so student borrowers could cap their payments at 10% of their discretionary monthly income. The Education Department would offer more outreach to let students know how to enroll in the program. And we are lucky to have 2 experts joining us this morning, experts in higher education, to discuss the president's plan and really the state of higher education here in Western New York. So joining me this morning, Gary Olson, the president of Daemen College and a monthly columnist for the Chronicle for Higher Education.
Morning.
Good morning. And also Mr. Bob Chrisman, former superintendent of Grand Island Schools, president of the New York State Council of School Superintendents, and now working as director for the Western New York Educational Service Council. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning,
Thank you for
Melissa.
joining us. We'll start with you, President Olson. You know the benefits of a college degree with students attending Daemen and so many other students across the country, but you also know firsthand the problems of families forced to pay loans and pay tuition that many can't afford. Set the scene for us in Western New York at Daemen.
Well, there's no doubt that the cost of higher education, private or public, has risen sharply over the last 20 years rather. It really is out of hand. It's not really that the colleges are charging too much, because the cost of providing the education is high. So I applaud the president for trying to do something here. I'm eager to see what the details are, though.
Right, and you'll be with us throughout the morning as we hear more details of the president's plan and to give us your input on what you think about that. Mr. Chrisman, you've seen students trying to apply to schools and having to struggle with what school can I afford to go to, what school do I want to go to. How hard is it for families nowadays?
It's very difficult, and the decisions that they have to make are decisions that will have impact on their entire lives. Especially on the financial side, from the time that young families with children need to start saving for the possibility of college, and until the time that they go through the loans and find jobs, and the inability to pay back some of those loans is really a ticking time bomb, because there's more and more students who graduate and don't have the ability to repay those loans because of the high cost they have. The average at $26,000. There are many students who graduate with much higher debt, and it puts them in a situation that has an impact on them for their entire, at least their young adult life.
And quickly from both of you, what is the one thing that you really want to hear from the president today and that you think Americans need to hear?
Well, I'd like to hear a real commitment to fixing the problem. Too many of the things that are proposed by a lot of politicians don't really fix the problem.
And Mr. Chrisman?
I'd like to see the proposals that the president has outlined here actually be approved by Congress, which, as you pointed out, is a challenge. And otherwise, it just becomes an exercise in rhetoric.
It is an important step in the process to have congressional approval. All right, Gary Olson, Bob Chrisman, thank you for joining us. We'll catch back with you in a few minutes to discuss more of this later on this morning. For now, we'll head to break, and then we will be back with more team coverage of the presidential visit to Western New York. Stay with us, everyone. And I am joined now by two experts in education. We're joined by the president of Daemen College, Mr. Gary Olson, also Ed Christensen, who is former superintendent of the Grand Island Schools. Thanks so much for joining us. If we can speak about the process of getting some of the proposals that the president will be outlining today approved by Congress, how difficult could that be?
It will probably be very difficult, and that is where the concern is. I observed the process with the nearly $800 million that came into the state for the race to the top. Then the plans had to be developed that were specific to how the process would work. Regretfully, however, at that time, there were a lot of policy wonks that were put in charge of that process, and the practitioners, by and large, were left out of it. And so we're dealing with the aftermath of having people who have put this together who were not practitioners, did not understand the nuances of the issue, and it's created a problem.
You know, we're having a problem with your microphone. Let's go to Mr. Olson while we fix your mic problem. President Olson, we're hearing more about the outline, the plan for what the president will be talking about today. What's good and what's bad about what you've learned so far?
Well, what I can see is that there's a real effort to try to help students pay off their loans and make it easier for them. So that's good. What seems to be of concern, though, is this new rating system that we really don't have any details on. If you have the wrong people coming up with a rating system, you could do more harm than good, and that's my worry. So, for example, one of the criteria that we did here is the graduation rate. Well, I mean, you can boost your graduation rate very easily by just giving out degrees, but I don't think we want to do that. So I just caution people that we get the right people making those decisions.
What else would we like to hear from the president today?
Again, it would be important to understand how he intends to have this implemented, assuming that it would get passed, which is certainly a challenge. But as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have the right people developing the very specific details of these plans, it's going to fall on its face. And that typically is what happens when you have very large efforts like we see this one to be, and if you don't put the college people, the university people that are at least a major segment of the input, this thing will take on a different look and will not be successful, especially a rating system. You have to have the people who are going to be rated part of how that will be developed.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
And how much support do you think we'll get from colleges on these plans?
Well, the colleges will support it if the colleges can be part of the development of the rating system, and I think that that's what you're saying. The problem is we don't have enough details now on how it will be come up with, because we do hear that they're going to ask for public input. Well, that's okay, but are they just going to listen to anybody, or are they going to put more weight on what the people from the colleges have to say?
So much more that we need to learn today about this proposal before it can be discussed and hashed out, and then it has to be hashed out in Congress as well. We're going to head now to our Michael Wooten, who is live on the campus of UB, where they are anxiously awaiting the president's arrival. He's outside right now with students and others who have gathered there to see him. Michael? I'm joined by some experts from the state of higher education. Gary Olson, president of Daemen College, and Bob Chrisman, former superintendent of Grand Island Schools, former president of New York State Council for the School Superintendents, and now working as director for Western New York Educational Service Council. There is no silver bullet, as Mary Alice said, but what needs to be done in your eyes, Mr. Chrisman, we'll start with you, to really shake up the system?
Well, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that the introductory will be a Grand Island graduate. I wasn't aware of that, but that's quite an honor for her and for the Grand Island School District. One of the things that has to happen is that there has to be a focus on the impact that the finances of college have on families. And one of the things that is important is establishing a priority that, as Arnie Duncan had initially said, if you don't have a higher education extension, you really will be limited in your career and your earnings, and it has an impact on family life and so on. So I'm really glad that the President is making an effort to acknowledge how important it is to make college accessible to the middle class and, in fact, everybody.
And not just paying for college, but then paying for the loans afterwards. And the President is also focusing on that, President Olson.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a good part of what I think he's going to be saying today. But, you know, in a lot of ways, this is around the edges, too, because really what we need to do is get back to where we were in the Eisenhower days and the Kennedy days, when society really valued higher education. Publics back not too long ago would get 70% maybe of their whole budget from the state. Now it's 30, 28, and less in some states. So that's an indication that we as a society don't put the same value on higher education. And I would like to get back to a time when higher education took high priority. The way to do that, in your eyes? Well, really put real funding into it. Now, these are measures that will probably help a bit, but they're Band-Aid measures.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, all of this needs to be approved by Congress, Mr. Chrisman, and
right.
That will be a challenge in and of itself.
It will be, and I think we've seen that the vast majority of the President's initiatives have not been successful. And when you have a divided government as we do, it's difficult to imagine what the future will be for something as big as this appears to be, and as good as it appears to be. Politics is still there, and it would be very difficult, I'm sure, for the governor to make the, the President make the case for this to, in fact, be successfully passed through Congress.
Of course, if any issue should be bipartisan, it should be this one, because this is the future of the country.
Of course, everyone, no matter whether you're right, left, liberal, conservative, you've got kids who are going to go to school, and this is an issue that affects every family in America. And it's really interesting that he's chosen to come to Buffalo to discuss and outline these plans for making higher education more affordable. Of course, right now, we are waiting for the President to enter Alumni Arena. It's 11:07 right now, almost 11:08. And as we watch the President leave Alumni Arena right now, I'd like to turn things over to our two experts that we have on our panel this morning, experts in higher education. Bob Chrisman, former Grand Island Superintendent, now working as Director for Western New York Educational Service Council. What did you take from what you learned today?
Well, one of the things that I was impressed with is the President's message on the importance of higher education. I think that it needs to be emphasized as often as it can that this is the key to the future for individuals. I also like the way that he talked about the impact of student debt. And the way he personalized it when he talked about the impact that it had on Michelle and him and how it affects his two children. Obviously, his circumstances are different, but for American families, that is what they're dealing with. We pay ours off. We're not planning for our own children. The other thing I was impressed with is that he kept talking about the global economy and 21st century skills. Unless you're better connected to business, you don't realize how much things have changed with the global economy to where you have to be competitive. And you take a look at the number of college graduates. At one time, the United States was right at the top of college graduates. Now we're down probably in round number 10, because there are other growing markets that are producing greater colleges, and they're coming to the United States, going back and doing things for their country. And I also like the online course idea of way to make college more efficient. That's something we desperately need in the public school system as well. The increase of technology to produce better results in our high schools.
Yeah, the president certainly didn't just speak about making college more affordable, but making it more effective as well. Also joining us is Gary Olson, president of Daemen College. The president did admit that this isn't going to make every college and university very happy if his plans are enacted. What concerns you about what you learned today?
Well, while there are many good things that I mentioned before, what worries me about the discourse, not only in the president's speech today, but whenever politicians recently are speaking about higher education, is that there's almost an assumption that the colleges aren't already doing everything that they can to keep costs down, that they're trying somehow to gouge students or make extra money on them, and that's really not the case. I've been in higher education for 35 years in several different kinds of colleges and universities, and usually every college bends over backwards to try to make it as affordable as they can under the circumstances that they have. And so I wish the public, or I hope the public understands that we're always looking for every innovation that we can to keep things down.
All right, Gary Olson and Bob Chrisman, thank you for joining us today. And we do have some higher education experts with me now here at the desk. We've got Gary Olson, president of Daemen College, monthly columnist also for the Chronicle for Higher Education, and Bob Chrisman, former Grand Island superintendent and director for Western New York Educational Service Council. I'd just like to hear from both of you your final thoughts about what you heard today and what needs to happen from here, President Olson.
Well, my greatest hope is that this begins a national dialogue about the value of higher education, because we really need to get back on track. The people that say we're losing our world position are right. You know, we need to get back, and that means a bigger commitment of both the state governments, national government, and everybody else.
At Daemen, is there anything that you will be doing, implementing any of these plans, or taking it back to the folks at Daemen to discuss this?
Well, we will discuss it, and we work really hard to keep the costs down, and in fact our costs relative to other similar colleges is very, very low. So, but we're going to do more. We'll do the best we can as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chrisman, what do you take from all of this?
I was a little surprised by the county executive in some of his comments that he did not mention the role that Erie Community College has in the big picture of controlling tuition costs. I saw the president of the college was there, President Quinn, who is the biggest advocate for the values of community college. And I really think that we have to make sure that we look at all the different approaches to cost saving, including the extreme value of two-year community colleges in New York State.
Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us this morning, this afternoon, for your insight as well.
A lot in the president's message today for parents, for educators, for taxpayers about changes that he's proposing that can make a difference in higher education and really make a difference in every American's pocketbook. Now all he has to do is go to work and get members of Congress on board. Thank you so much for joining us at WGRZ for your special coverage of the president's visit to Buffalo. Continue to join us online on WGRZ.com.